I'd be a hamster, a hedgehog, or a shrew. I would walk across the world just to snuggle up with you. Wish I'd be a hamster, a hedgehog, or a shrew. I would walk across the world to snuggle up with you. Wish I'd be a hamster, a hedgehog, or a shrew. I would walk across the world to snuggle up with you.
All right, welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre. Uh, I said we're taking the summer off. Let me actually zoom out again to the image here. We're at the cafe. Summer break, but we will be reading. So we're taking a break, but we're here. So what's going on? Well, we're not booking guests, but we meet every Wednesday at the regular time. And I have to make an announcement about that in a second. But the guests are all you. I'm just the MC. And here is the real life me. I'm just saying, like, this is I have a little bit more me time, a little bit more. I don't want to lie. I don't want to sound like I'm working my I'm dying of working. I'm still working throughout the summer. But last week I talked about my balcony vacation. The balcony vacation has been extended to the park vacation. So I go to the park. I'm sitting here with Perry Roden, of course. I'm reading several things parallel, but we have to talk about a little bit about Perry Roden today as well. So this is me in real life, and let me just also put another slide here because people have been asking what is going on with Gustav. Gustav is also with me at the park when I'm at the park. Okay, so here we go. Here he is. And he sits there patiently when I'm reading. So not only when I'm reading Perry Roden. Last week, so okay, couple house cleaning notes real quick. The tip jar is of course active here in the corner. These tips go to the team. They don't go to me, they go to the team. And the team is active. Some of the team is here. I see Shyla. Hello. And some of the team is not here. Shame on them, but you can still donate. Because they're doing amazing work behind the scenes all the time. Because we're already booked, we have guests booked. We're building avatars and such and etc. Also, big hello to Kitten Duo. Kitten Duo on the YouTube stream. Kitten Duo is a member of the channel, my Draxtor channel, and she's been a Drax fan for 9 months, and she has upgraded the membership to Drax fan. Wait a minute, she was a Drax Bro. I debated if I should have a Drax Sis membership, but well, she was a Drax Bro. Now she's a Drax fan. Sorry, I got that confused. Kitten, this is amazing. Thank you, Kitten, for supporting. And let's train the camera again on Shyla because Shyla is the star. Everybody here is the star, of course. We have Bergen Betts, we have Flenza Jürgens. Flenza sometimes takes the entire room and sometimes not. He can take the room. We got the space. Got Little Brat. Jessica Bijou Diesel, hello, is a new face here. Welcome to the book club. And Bunny McCloud. And you can type chat. I'm going to read the chat. You can also interrupt me in voice. Stranger is here. So now today, well, first of all, I recommended Marlene Haushofer's The Wall last week. Book about a woman who is in a cabin in the woods and cannot leave because she's enclosed by an invisible barrier. Okay, so this is not a Stephen King type novel. And like I said last week, uh, the sci-fi trained mind immediately goes to, oh my God, what's going on? The aliens are coming and put a dome, invisible dome there. What's happening? Two, uh, 20 pages after the incident happens in the book, or maybe even 10, your brain is not interested in that anymore, in the reveal, like it would be maybe in a speculative fiction TV show or whatever. The book takes you places that are much more interesting than a simple sort of like gotcha gimmick plot reveal whatnot. So that's that, The Wall, and I know that Bunny told me that she quite enjoyed that. Now let's see. I We have two readings today. Actually, Jessica Jean-Vive is reading from a upcoming Schutzer collection. This is really a cool cover. She just sent me this earlier today. The Settling of Old Scores. So she's going to read a short story from this book. This is just a temporary cover. And I will be reading the other book that I'm reading, Star of the Unborn. I mentioned this last week a little bit that I'm starting it. This was the debate I had, picking one canon book, something that is significant of the last few hundred years in the Western canon. Franz Werfel was an Austro Bohemian writer, born in Prague, fled the Nazis, lived in the U.S., and I decided to read this book because I had it on the shelf since 1986, pretty much. And it's absolutely insane. It's about a traveler who travels 100,000 years into the future. This book was written when Franz Werfel was very sick. It was written between 1943 and 1945 in American exile, where Franz Werfel had a lot of success. Uh, Many Germans did not have the success, um, but he was nonetheless not very happy, and he was very sick. And I just found this out. My birthday is August 24th. He completed this book on August 24th, 1945, and he died 2 days later. It was published posthumously. This is about a traveler who travels 100,000 years into the future, and it is, yeah, I'm going to read a little bit. It's superb language. Franz Werfel was one of the greatest writers of this era, and the relevance of what he encounters, the society of the future in all its facets, is just amazing. Last week gave a little teaser. One of the things that's happening is the space travels to the person, right? So if a person wants to travel somewhere, he doesn't go there by any means, spaceships or whatever. None of that stuff exists. They bring the space to them with a little puzzle game that they play in their hands. They play it in their hands, and then they meditate on this puzzle, and then the place comes to them. So this is just one thing that's it's just uh there's tons of ideas, but it's really the mountain comes to Muhammad. Yeah, stranger. By the way, Franz Werfel was also very famous for a book, The Song of Bernadette, which was made into a movie, but also the book The 40 Days of Mossadek, which was about the Armenian genocide, and that came out 30s, and it was really, I mean, obviously, the the similarity to what happened to the Armenians and what happened in Germany, well, is genocide, and Franz Werfel's books were, of course, burned. But the 40 Days of Mossadek, I hear it. Here it goes. 1933 made him a hero to the Armenian people. There are several statues of his in Armenia, and he described this in quite a detail. Uh, the murderous rampage of the Ottoman Empire, of the occupiers. But Yeah, I'm just going to read a little bit later of the Star of the Unborn because I think if you get the flavor of this, there was certainly sci-fi before this, so I'm not going to call the Star of the Unborn the proto sci-fi novel or whatever, but it's just in its exploration about human consciousness. The main narrator, you don't know if he's dead, but he appears in a tux, in a kind of an old tux, like he thinks maybe I was buried, maybe I'm dead, and he's traveling on the astral plane. Um, yeah, incredible ideas. Now, but Jessica's gonna read first. If you guys want to share in local chat, I have a question about summer reading. Everybody talks about summer reading. So my question is, what are you reading right now? And is there a difference between summer reading and regular reading? Because I know it's kind of a marketing thing, I guess, summer reading, but everybody goes like, okay, summer reading's got to be somehow light. I think that's BS. I mean, my summer reading's pretty heavy, although I do read Perry Roden. I don't know if Perry Roden is heavy. And while you guys are, I'm gonna read the chat. But I'm going to put the camera here on Perry Roden because we're not done with Perry Roden yet. I have a very cheap hobby, which is Perry Roden, and these booklets, these Heftromane, they're 80 cents each used. And this is the one that came out in April 1983 when I was 12 years old. This was the first one I read, and I just bought this for 80 cents used. And so not only am I crazy reading Perry Roden from issue number one, if you don't know what Perry Roden is, it's the biggest sci-fi series in the world. It started 1961 with issue number one. This is 1130. This is epic storytelling, but it's issued every week in a magazine of about 60 pages, but they're interconnected, right? It's not a finished story. They're interconnected. Let's see, people are still typing. I'm going to go there a little bit. Perry Roden is huge in Germany, Japan, France, Netherlands, and Brazil. As you know, our set design mistress, goddess, is Ruby. And number Perry Roden 1100 in Brazil, in Portuguese, is O Ruby Gelado. Der Frostrobin in Deutsch. And this here is a very new one that came out a few weeks ago. Uh, Actually, a few months ago. Sorry, this goes so fast. But you see the covers here. I mean, the covers are just amazing. Look at this cover here, Aufstand für Sonnenreich. Again, this is 82. Then this one, number 1100, is actually just before. This is the start of the season. So the season or the cycle is always 100 magazines, basically, right? So this starts 1100, and then for some reason, I have no idea. I would love to travel back in time and talk to my 12-year-old self why I got this one, but I think the cover, as I saw it at the magazine store and I started to get into sci-fi, saw this cover, oh my God, I gotta have it. So I know I'm gonna get to the chat in a second, but first let me throw out here. Where is it? From the 60s. Still talking about Perry Roden. This is a cover from the 60s. This is the fifth edition already. So this is a cover from the 60s. These covers are amazing too. And I was actually at the used bookstore today, and this is what I got. This is from my haul. Again, 80 cents. The cheapest and most satisfying hobby that I have. You know, no expensive golfing gear required. Here we go. This is another one from the 60s. This is number 28. See? Classic. Saving the woman by punching out the other guy while some dude in a Spacesuit is flying outside and says, "Hey, watch the time." I don't know what he's saying. Okay, quick Perry Roden break. Let me read the chat here. My summer reading is exactly as disturbing as the rest of the year, says Little Brad. Aha! Horror, 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 nonstop. Um, Flenza, woo, I was paying as much as $20 for my old Perry Roden. Yeah, but in the U.S. they didn't issue the U.S. They didn't issue these smaller hefts, right? They're all paperbacks basically, and it's probably rarer because I looked on eBay. You can't get those under 20. Baragon sounds like a little like a parlor game committee stories. Baragon, are you referring to Star of the Unborn? I read a very interesting sci-fi novel by Franz Werfel, novel set in a distant future Earth. Stranger, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Star of the Unborn. Zoom in behind me. This is the book. And it was huge in the US in the 70s, because it was all like, it fell into the whole, I guess there's a relation to Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha and um, the Glass Bead game and those kind of German speaking authors that were interested in spiritual stuff. But Star of the Unborn, this is exactly that's the book you're talking about. Elian, I don't read different due to seasons, but I used to read more in the fall, winter. I'm more out of festivals, out with friends. Yeah, that makes sense. More like an indoors activity, reading is, right? So now let's see here. Yes, let me check here on Wikipedia. Give me 1 second, and I'll find the link. Star of the Unborn. A utopian story set 100,000 years in the future tells the story of an astromental world that has overcome the physical issues. And one of the other things is they also overcome work because they only have one worker. They have the worker, and he does pretty much everything. And it actually I read somewhere that it's also supposed or classified as a satire. But there's some satiric elements, but it's also really, really, satire is deep, but this is also very, very serious um, about dealing with what it means to be human, or what it means to be living in a society. So I'm gonna read some of this stuff in a little bit. But okay, I said we're done with Perry Roden. I lied because I scanned in a few titles here, few covers from the 80s. So I'm going to just show this. So look at the top prim. I'm gonna swap this one out. I mean, if we had avatars like this, you know, I'm gonna have a Perry Roden special October 26th with the writers, the translators, and hopefully the Japanese cover artist. But so these are from the 80s. Again, this is sort of when I started reading. Here's a regular centaur, no big deal, right? Still cool. Here, die Goon-Hölle, the hell of goons. Oh my God. It's just, I don't know what that is. Some sleeping dinosaur. And this one I love here. Look at this. These are called the top seats. This is a alien race. They're all lizards, right? These are the ones Alex Jones has been warning us about. But unfortunately, he's on trial and he can't really focus on warning us. Oh, wait. Okay. So hold on 1 second here. I'm going to throw up something over here. You won't believe this because there's also other books like this, little booklets. And one I found out and wasn't aware is called Mad Drax. and it's published today every single week, at least in Germany. This is a series, the same format, these magazines, okay? This is called Mad Drax, and the setup of this universe here, this is horror, sci-fi, all mixed in together. The world collapsed in 2012, okay? And then this one guy, Matthew Drax, who everybody calls Mad Drax, is a fighter pilot, and he's thrown into the future in 2500 or something. I mean, look at this. This is interesting, right? Again, going back to Franz Werfel, who wrote Star of the Unborn in 1945 on my birthday, no less. And now we have Mad Drax, and everything is just the same time travel, this time travel, that. But the funny thing is that my last name is Drax, of course, in real life, but also here in Second Life, my name is Draxtor. I'm not really mad, but I almost got married in Riverside, California. Fortunately for me, so this is in English, this would be the last days of Riverside. Fortunately for me, this is not me and my wife here before everything goes down to shits, because I was actually married in San Bernardino, which is right next door. So anyway, you know, suck on this, Matrax. But what I wanted to show folks is this is a regular paperback book format, and this magazine format that Perry Roden comes in, right? So you see, it's bigger. This is, by the way, a really, really important nonfiction book that I'm starting to read on Sunday, The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber. Shyla, if you're around, can you look this up? The Dawn of Everything. And there's actually an interview with David Wengrow, one of the writers. David Graeber, of course, passed away, incredible activist and sociologist, anthropologist. But The Dawn of Everything is amazing. Anyway, but I took this picture because I wanted to show you the difference in size of these little magazines. And here we go. This is sideways, right? So you can see like this thin magazine, and they're 64, 66 pages, but there's a couple ads in there. So they're it's probably around 60 pages written for the story. So it's a very interesting format, and it was called Trivialliteratur in Germany. It was seen as beneath. It was seen for something for the masses, something simple, simplistic, and it's just not the case. I mean, yeah, the format, Pulp Fiction, exactly, or dime novels, I think is another English term. And what's interesting is, yeah, there is plenty of crap. Let me tell you, I was at the bookstore today, and these guys have like all the stuff from the 50s, and some of the stuff is crime, and some of the stuff is like doctors, doctor stories, like the nice looking country doctor and stuff like that. And some of the stuff is utter crap, but the format itself also it was and is a delivery uh, m- method, a delivery mechanism for incredible storytelling. I mean, the Perry Roden stuff, again, is complex in a way that it rivals, big, epic, sagas like the Three Body Problem, just to pick something more recent. The, I would argue that the Perry Roden people, the Perry Roden writers, which are about 15 writers, they write on this continuous series. I would argue that they collectively have created something that is the same quality as something like the Three Body Problem. I mean, they have created a universe and they expand this universe continuously. It's a different task. Um, and on the show, when these guys come here, I want to really find out from them the logistical, challenges of somebody coming up. I mean, it's not unlike a TV show where you have a showrunner and somebody has to supervise who writes what for which episode, what goes into which episode and stuff like that. But I don't know. I would argue this is even more complex than like a big TV show like I don't know Lost. I always reference Lost because it was the last TV show that I started. Stranger is saying something here. Let me see. One cover with a short novel, then you finished that, you flipped it over, there was another cover and the short novel starting on that side. When I was a kid, a big thing was ace doubles. Oh, that's very interesting, Stranger. Ace doubles. Aha. So there were two stories, two short novels in one book, you're saying. Let's see, one cover with a short novel, and then you finished that, you flipped it over. Aha. So it was you flipped it over so it was upside down on the so you started in the back, right? And then it was sort of split in the middle. Wow. That's an amazing concept. That is pretty cool. You can sort of trick yourself into like, yeah, wow, I have actually two books in one. That is amazing. Nobody does that now, right? Shyla, can you retrieve a link maybe with or find maybe an image? That would be cool. Send it to me in World. I put it up on the slide thing. That's amazing. I never heard of this. The double books. Lots of new writers started out with double books and the mags. Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, those magazines, the pulp magazines and weird stories or whatever that was, but the 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 ace doubles. Wow, that is new to me. Maybe folks want to send me take pictures of their most prized possessions at home for next week, and I'll put that out there. Tor is the biggest publisher, the biggest sci-fi publisher, I believe. Um, yeah. So while Shala is looking this up, let me see. Did I showcase all the Perry Roden? I showcased this one. Oh yeah. Sorry, one more, and then Jessica is up, and I'm going to set it up. Just want to say the Perry Roden covers. This is a brand new one. This is not the newest one, but it's from a few weeks ago. So the covers have grown. All right. I've done my part. Tried to convince you to learn German just to read Perry Roden because it's not published in America no more in English, I mean, or in any English speaking country. Although Perry Roden Neo is published there, and we have those guys on. Anyways, now Jessica here, let me see. Jessica wrote a short story, and I think it's called William. Let's see here. I don't know who William is. Actually, I do. Jessica, if you have William's image, I don't have it in World, and we can put this up as well. So Jessica wrote a short story that she's going to read. It's called William, and she sent me a little setup, so I'm going to read that. Museums all over the world sell merchandise. It provides them with greatly needed funds and lets the visitor take home a souvenir, a gift perhaps for those not fortunate to have enjoyed the day out. These gather dust on shelves and cupboards and on refrigerator doors, proudly announcing, I've been there, and these are my trophies. The high profile national museums. I have refrigerator magnets, by the way, just saying. The high-profile national museums have special items, exclusive expense and expensive Van Gogh painting suitcases, signature bed linen, silky scarves and umbrellas bearing the beautiful face of the girl wearing her pearl earring. Less well patronized and endowed are the small local museums who boast a few special items that are their most prized exhibits. Souvenirs are expensive to produce, and so the little shop on the way to the exit is stuffed with other items that represent things cultural and historical. The head of a pharaoh or a Viking helmet, cheap things that show that the museum would have such treasures if only they could afford them. Copies of limestone busts of Nefertiti, the royal wife of Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, are for sale all around the world, but there's only one original. Somewhere in China or India, replicas of her wonderful face are churned out by factories and sent to museums that are not fortunate enough to own her. This short story is part of a collection of settling called The Settling of All Scores, Story of Revenge and Magic Realism. William is a delightful statuette of a hippopotamus found in the tomb chapel of the Stuart Senby II that is now on display at the Metropolitan Museum on Fifth Avenue. Children can send him questions about ancient Egypt. I wondered how William felt about all this. So let's see here. Please come up on stage, and I'm going to remove myself. And hold on, Jessica. I want to get William in here. I have him on the other machine. And also, I'm going to switch your book display. Let's hide this one. Put this in the back. Oopsie daisy. Don't want to delete the entire place. There's a lot of stuff floating around. And put this in front of Jessica's nose. And now I got the star of the Unborn back in here.
I've got the sulky sit again. Okay.
There's a lot of
You
sits
ready?
in there.
Yeah, this one will do, eh? So this is the comedy part of the show.
Why?
Because I never write anything that's serious. Well, I do. Drax has given you the really good background. What this book is short stories. This is written under Jessica Genevieve, and she is my magic realism pen name. So this is a book of short stories that will come out Christmas, I think. Each story is about revenge. So this book is really dedicated to anyone who has ever upset me.
Oh, it's personal.
It's really personal. It's getting revenge. So there's lots of stories. They're all urban fiction, magic realism. And William, well, I met William in a museum, and he was a little plush toy, not a splendid Egyptian artifact. If you go into museums, you'll find that the same yellow ducks with the heads of pharaohs appear for sale in museums all over the world. But they must produce the stuff. But
Right.
only the really rich museums can have the one special thing. So this is William. I'm hoping you can all hear me okay.
You sound fantastic, and I'm actually uploading William. So we let me put this on these prims here, so we have it right next to you. So first of the William, you got the cheap William. This the plushy toy William, and
There he is.
and there's another one.
That's the real
That's the
William.
real William. Ah, yeah.
That's the one and only William that's in the Metropolitan Museum. They didn't steal him, he was given to them, so he's quite legitimate and doesn't have to be given back.
Oh, the plushy one looks a little sad.
Isn't it ghastly? It's hideous.
I don't.
So,
Oh, you make him feel bad, Jessica.
well, he does feel bad. So,
Okay.
here is his story. William was not a toy. The little hippopotamus standing proudly in his glass case is about the size of a miniature dachshund. As he is a god, his sacred image is distributed across the globe, reproduced in china clay, turquoise blue leather, or plush velvet. William was sick of it. He was content to allow a child to hug him, just as long as he could feast on the little creature after it had finished tickling him. Some patronising British journalism called him William back in the day, and the name had stuck. Now he was growing tired of it. Benign he was not even remotely harmless. He was the most feared animal in Egypt, overturning fishing boats as they cruised up and down the Nile. He would smash his bulk through the wooden hull and then trample the thrashing survivors to death. The hippopotamus god guarded the waters of the afterlife. He was a force of nature that must be controlled and placated, which is why he was placed in the tomb of the pharaoh's steward, the most important man of the Middle Kingdom. The finely glazed figurine was set among the burial equipment, some of his little faience legs deliberately broken in case he attacked the deceased when his preserved body was revived in the afterlife. William felt this to be unnecessary. He was expertly crafted from faience and painted with a precious blue glaze, enhanced with exquisite flowers that grew by the river where he lived. Each day the opening and closing of the lotus flower mirrored the sunrise and sunset, and the circle of birth, death, and rebirth. The artisans had taken the trouble to craft the statue from only the finest materials, with images of the marshes and their abundant flowers, hand-painted in black against the rich blue colour of the River Nile. Once, William had a smaller brother. He was there when the tomb was sealed. William was sure of that. Where was he now? William was unsure. There'd been so many people in the procession that day, and after the ceremony, there was just darkness and silence. He soon lost all sense of time, and he missed the reassuring presence of his brother beside him. He was sick of his glass case, and was tired of children pressing their snotty noses against it. The museum thought it amusing to call him an unofficial mascot and invite the little beast to send him questions about his life in ancient Egypt, as if they cared about such things. They recently brought objects of metal and glass and flashed at him like the rays of the sun god Ra, and captured his image on their tablets. Did they not know that this was heresy? It was just plain wrong, against all that was holy. When the Pharaoh's steward awoke, there would be trouble about it. For a time, the head of a female curator sealed in a small box talked endlessly, describing him as having short, stumpy legs. That curator would pay for her insolence when William was reborn. He was chaos and evil, and his vast jaws would show her who had short, stumpy legs. William wondered what was taking so long. They should be well on their way to the afterlife by now. The steward possessed an expensively prepared copy of the Book of the Dead, which provided a compilation of spells to equip the deceased with the knowledge and power to reach the next world in safety. This was the way to eternal life. William expected to be in the procession through the long hall of columns, following the steward to stand before the god Thoth, who, assuming the form of a baboon, sat on the top of the scales of judgment. Anubis would weigh the steward's heart against the feather of truth. The scales would decide his eternal fate. If he failed the test, he would experience a second agonizing death in the jaws of Amit the Devourer. Secreted in the steward's heart was all the good and all the evil he had done in his long privileged life. That summer, early in the morning, costumed attendants laid a blue carpet along the vast columned hall where William was kept. He thought that perhaps at last it was time for him to be reborn. There were bright lights and some golden armchairs placed along the length of the carpet. Then, just before opening time, a group of Egyptians arrived, dressed in fine linen robes and sandals. With them was the god Anubis, carrying his jackal's head, accompanied by the god Thoth, holding the silver scales of justice. The goddess Mart entered, tossing her long spiral wig of clacking blue beads. In her headband was the feather of truth, and she held before her the Ankh, the symbol of life. Some youths and maidens, holding long papyrus branches as fans and wearing crowns of lotus flowers, attended them. They walked up and down the carpet, practicing their ceremonial dances. Then there was a pleasant smell of incense. At last the steward arrived, carrying the Book of the Dead to protect him and provide the required responses to the sacred rites. William shuffled across his glass case, confident that it would open soon and he would join the procession. Soon a group of people were allowed to enter, and a throng of onlookers were seated on the golden chairs. William heard the sound of a simsimia, a sort of lyre, played in the background, with the faint beating of a drum. His little blue ceramic heart was beating fast as his body filled with the spirit of life. The procession was coming, and people were clapping. William could see that Anubis had taken his place beside Mart, with the scales of justice held between them, ready to weigh the heart of the steward. He watched the slaves perform the sacred glances, tossing lotus petals along the blue carpet which stood in for the river Nile. William was now right at the edge of his case. Surely they would let him out soon to join the procession. He kicked at the glass with his little blue legs as he saw the steward, tall and stately, walk proudly to meet the gods, ready to present his heart for judgment. The steward spoke out loud the verses of protection, the magic key to the afterlife. There was a sound of a few heads turned, then looked away as the music grew louder. The steward placed his heart on the scales that would decide his fate. Then the audience cheered as William crashed through the shattered glass and hurried along the carpet to join in the procession. Various attendants took a step towards him and then hesitated, thinking it better to pretend that it was part of the performance. An official dressed as a priest quietly summoned the security guards while hiding her cell phone behind an extended papyrus scroll. There was a hush as the scales of justice tipped back and forth and finally stopped on the side of eternal life. The goddess of Mat took the steward's hand and led him briskly in a solemn procession through the open doors, beyond the blue carpet of the Nile, towards the distant horizon. Anubis and Thoth followed. The slave dancers quickly ushered those seated on the chairs out through the opposite doors. There was a clunk as the door closed mechanically behind them. A piercing alarm sounded, and William was all alone. There was to be no eternal life for him.
Jessica, an amazing story. Oh my God.
Isn't it silly?
Oh, it is so good. And poor William, and the the original looks stern and determined, and the plushy toy looks resigned. It's
Yeah.
really what you have sort of distilled in this story.
Thank you, poor William. I felt so sorry about that. And basically, that's what the book's about. It's about stories like that are magic realism, urban fiction, but there's a revenge or an element like that in it. And so there's a new one on the way that I started today, which is going to be called The Mermaid of Notting Hill. So I shall have fun with her. But yes, well, thank you for letting me read that.
Thank you, Jessica. This is superb. See, I hope that other people follow your lead here, because we have so much talent in this community. So the people that seek revenge, they can be, well, in this case, it's a historic artifact, and now it's a mermaid. So this could be anybody, not humans.
Anybody. There's Freya, who is a Norse god. There is, what's the other one? There's a person who illustrates food for magazines. There's a story there. There's all sorts of stories where little things. Cats disappear on this island. Believe it or not, people steal them.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was the inspiration for one story.
Wait, that's a real
there's
thing
a-
that happened?
Yeah, it's quite upsetting. They think they're lost, because there's lots of cats here and they do wander about, and people go, oh, poor thing, on its own. And they put it in the car and take it away.
Oh my! Oh, where
Which,
you live? That's what's happening
yeah,
there?
yeah, that upset me greatly.
And
So
and
I
what do
wrote a
they do
story.
with them? Do they kill them?
No, they keep them. They keep them. I wrote a story about that, which, yeah, be careful whose cat you take, basically.
Oh yeah. Well, I read
Yeah,
Pet Cemetery years ago.
yeah,
Stephen King.
yeah.
All right.
I kind of like things like that. And this collection, the cover, which you can see here, the photograph was taken by my friend Sean in a volcano in Iceland, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's
So
a
that one's
great
going to be
cover.
fun, as well as having to finish my third novel, which is coming together beautifully. And yeah, but thank you for letting me read that. I shall return to my seat and await instruction.
Please do, and thank you again, and big round of applause. This is really really wonderful. This cover, and I asked you if you could, this preliminary cover, I really like it. This you just sent me this afternoon, local time. Okay, I'm going to move this over if I can. And now for I'm going to read a little bit of Star of the Unborn, again, 1945 novel by Franz Werfel. Please do look it up. And Shyla, oh, I think Shyla already put a link in there. Um, and Stranger, I guess, read it. And our traveler, I'm going to start from the very beginning because it's quite hilarious, and then I'll jump in to another chapter. But what it just occurred to me is one of the things that he finds out early on in the book. I'm only on page 125 or so, or 150. He encounters a guy to be married, and they greet the traveler from 100,000 years ago as this, special guest to the wedding. And they ask him about war, and I found that so interesting. And the groom is obsessed with war, and he thinks war is the only way that to move society forward. And remember, when Franz Werfel wrote this, it was during World War II. He fled from the Nazis. He was first in France. I mean, it was an incredible story. His traveling, fleeing the Nazis from Germany to then ultimately U.S. Uh, and he himself is the main protagonist, the traveler. We'll get to that in a second. And then he goes into the future and he encounters this guy who tells him, "Oh, oh yeah, war is very important. Tell us about war." And he just says, "War is a travesty." Um, and this future person is very disappointed that the esteemed intellectual traveler from the past has such a bad opinion about war. So these kind of discussions are going on. So where I'm at on this 600 plus page book, page 150, is really, yeah, it is really like a travel log where Franz Werfel himself, FW, is encountering super strange things. And let me just read from chapter 1, setting up the camera like this so we can see the cover. And uh, Stranger just said he has that cover, and I wanted to buy this on eBay. I have the German book, and I would love to buy this, but it's cost prohibitive. Kitten Duo, by the way, says thank you, Jessica, and big round of applause. Now, moving to Franz Werfel's Star of the Unborn, the first chapter, wherein the author appears to be prologizing, but the reader soon discovers that he is apologizing. This is the first chapter simply because it seemed inappropriate to begin this opuscule with a second chapter. The only factors that stood in the way of placing the words Chapter 2 on the first page of this novel were the publisher's sense of propriety, the reading public's well-known propensity for the discovery of monstrous typographical errors, and finally, the author's mania for originality, since he feared that some colleague in the gaily flippant era of Romanticism must certainly have begun one of his rank works with a second chapter. For these reasons, we begin with chapter 1, no matter how superfluous this chapter may be for the progress of the action, or more accurately, of the exploration. Now, since we're dealing with a kind of travelogue, I feel the obligation to introduce the hero, or more modestly, the central figure of the occurrences here set forth. This particular literary form has the unfortunate weakness that the eye that sees, the ear that hears, the spirit that comprehends, the voice that narrates, the I that is involved in many adventures, constitutes the central point about which, in the most literal sense, everything revolves. This central point, candidly designated as FW, is, unfortunately, I myself. Purely from an innate aversion to getting into difficulties, I'm sorry, flip the page. I should have preferred not to be I self in these pages. Still, it was not only the most natural, but the only way, and I was regrettably unable to invent any he that could adequately have borne the burden of the I for me. And so the I of this story is not a deceptive, novelistic, assumed, fictitious I, any more than the story itself is the mere offspring of speculative imaginations. It happened to me, as I must confess, quite against my will, without the slightest preparation or premonition. Contrary to all my habits and instincts, I was sent out one night as an explorer. And what I experienced, I really did experience. I am quite prepared to embark upon a frank discussion of this little word, really, with any philosophically minded reader, and I'm confident that I will win the argument in every instance. As I inscribe this record, I am still living and living again in the precise space between the words still and again lies the world of my voyage of discovery and exploration, which I began as an ignorant, even recalcitrant tourist, in order to complete it as a keen observer, with a few new and definite ideas in my pocket. It would undoubtedly be a great mistake on the part of the reader to close the book in disgust at this point. Little mysteries such as still and again are the obscurities and riddles of a first chapter, which chapter 2 will very soon resolve. Ah, boy, isn't that an opening? And this is a great translation, let me tell you, because I'm reading it in German, and sometimes translations of like there's Franz Kafka translations out there in English that are bad, they're abysmal. Um, but this is good. So should I read a little bit of chapter 2? Because he says chapter 1 is ridiculous, a waste of time. Okay, no response. You know how I am. I'm fast on the draw, and we're almost closing in on the top of the hour. Chapter 2, the action starts. Here we go. Chapter 2, the second chapter, wherein I meet my friend BH, who calls my attention to the fact that I am invisible. What? You're not dead, BH? I asked my best and oldest friend, and shook his hand, delighted to see him again. A weight fell from my heart at this meeting after so many years. In the course of the great flight from the Nazis, he had been driven from place to place, finally to land in India, in the far northern part of the Tibetan border, somewhere in the vicinity of Darjeeling, and the war had broken all communication between us. Who knows? Perhaps I should have tried, after all, to write him a letter or to make inquiries through the Red Cross to see whether I could help him. Although I had no evidence of it, I was convinced that he had perished. But BH smiled, and at the same time his large head, with its black hair and fine dark eyes, trembled a little. In fact, it almost shook. It had been a habit of this is long ago when we were schoolmates, whenever he succeeded in making a particularly devastating remark. I'm not dead, BH said with a twinkle. As you see, I'm quite alive and in full possession of my faculties. It's you who are dead, FW, and you've been dead far, far longer than you can remember. What? How can I be dead, BH? I asked, offended by his frankness, which seemed to me in bad taste, although I had been guilty of the same indiscretion just a moment earlier. BH looked at me long and earnestly before he made up his mind to ask, Can you see me, FW? Of course I can see you. How do you manage at 50 to look like 25? No, even that's an exaggeration. You look exactly as you did the way we graduated. According to the present method of computing ages, I am 107 years old, he replied straight to the point. But how about you, FW? Can you see yourself? I looked down along my body. I could not see myself. A sudden shock galvanized me. I was invisible. To be invisible to others is depressing enough, but to be invisible to myself? I tried to collect my scattered thoughts and emotions. First of all, I noticed with surprise that I was feeling well, uncommonly well, in fact, certainly much better than a while ago. When was that? A while ago. When I presumably stepped out of a gate at a considerable distance from this spot and somehow lost my way on a strange road where I suddenly met my old friend BH. Incidentally, I'm not at all certain that I am right in using the word road. It was obviously leveled ground that extended evenly in all directions to the horizon, without any sign of interruption on the right or left by embankments or roadside ditches. Under my feet was short, dry turf that expedited progress remarkably well and made walking a novel pleasure. The turf consisted of well tended grass, but this grass had lost even the slightest tinge of green. It grew out of the ground in shades of varying from white to iron gray, like the hair on the skull of an aging, though still robust man. The phrase under my feet was not a stylistic error, as one or another of my readers had once suspected. Although I was invisible to others, and even to myself, I really possessed hands and feet, and in fact the entire body, to which I had so long been accustomed. While I was invisible, I was certainly not incorporeal. To be sure, when I felt along my sides with my good old hands, I felt nothing but space. But within this void, I could feel my heart beating more calmly than ever. My lungs expanded and contracted. I could see, hear, smell, and taste. My youthful well being seemed to arise from the fact that these sensory functions did not, as formerly, have to operate through a ponderous material body that was already worn out in spots. To use a banal and only half suitable analogy, I felt as light and mobile as a fat man hopes to feel after a conscientiously rigorous reducing treatment. Was BH right? And was it really the rigorous, the eminently successful reducing treatment of death that I had undergone with such splendid results? I did not doubt the possibility for a moment. And yet, I don't know why, I experienced a sense of shame at this instant. I was ashamed not only of my own account, but also on BH's. It was a shame similar to that of being naked, a nakedness, moreover, beyond all conception and imagination. In order to extricate myself, and perhaps BH too, from this embarrassment, I muttered, What a lot of nonsense we dream at times. BH shook his head. They used to hand out very silly theories about such matters, he commented. You aren't speaking about Freud's interpretation of dreams, are you, BH? He looked at me with an effort of concentration as though he failed to understand me. Who, Freud? Fraud? What's that? How do you expect me to remember names from the beginnings of mankind? The beginnings of mankind? I echoed, and I clearly felt that a tinge of offended emotion colored the voice which rang from my invisible mouth, from my equally invisible inwards. The beginnings of mankind? Were those the beginnings of mankind, my dear BH, when we read Shakespeare and Goethe together, when we argued about Dostoevsky and Nietzsche, about Pascal and Kierkegaard, and the parkways of the Belvedere? Don't you remember? It was just recently. It was yesterday. Maybe it was only this morning because you look like a college student right now. And when we entered the army in the First World War, you and I, and later on we used to write letters to each other, and we met again from time to time for the spiritual friendship of early youth as a strong bond. And you were BH and I was FW, and then the Nazis came and I saw you once more. You were on your way to India. What a sad parting. I felt that we would never see each other, for the Second World War was already waiting just outside the park gate of the loveliest French summer. We both had dreadful experiences. I was afraid you had died in India, but maybe the Tibetan monks taught you how to go on living forever. I am living in California at present. Still, it may be that I'm buried in California, for you have convinced me of my fearful invisibility, and all of it is so terribly real and recent. I don't understand your irony about the beginnings of mankind. Our two situations, my dear FW, he interrupted me, are radically different. You have preserved all these memories of the beginnings of mankind so vividly because you haven't had a turn in the meantime. Haven't had a turn? I snapped at him. What do you mean by this infantile expression? You seem to have preserved a pretty good memory of our high school jargon. Have a turn? Do you mean being called on by the teacher? Quite right, FW. And it happens to be my turn just now. That is to say, I am living. I decided to keep quiet, although I had a hard time doing it. By virtue of my invisibility, or rather my transparent, intangible, and imponderable corporality, my thoughts swirled in violent rapids, and I understood and recognized many things in a penetrating manner. A spirit functioned in the nature of an orchestral score. A number of cognitions, like a musical fugue, developed in harmonious confusion, and yet they formed a meaningful entity of which I became fully aware. So I thought BH's sojourn in Tibet had a definite influence on him. Without a doubt, he embraced the more orthodox form of the doctrine of reincarnation. In fact, reincarnation itself. That's what he meant by having a turn. Should I, for that reason, turn away from BH and drop him like a potato? Does the doctrine or the practice of reincarnation contradict my own belief in immortality? Every ego, I reasoned, is immortal, but not every ego is a complete ego. There's only a limited number of souls, much smaller than the number of names which these egos bear in the course of their permutations. Every ego, like a more or less successful book, appears successively in various editions and each time under a new title. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Um, I mean, I love this language, and he there's a lot of it's just soul searching, a literal soul searching that he does, and then he encounters these people, and you got this glimpse of the fact that he's invisible, and I had to think while I was reading. I sort of think of resing in Second Life, and if matter of fact, the term second reality or different reality, it's all about the nature of reality. This book, and yeah, as a Second Life resident, when he goes like, "Yeah, I'm invisible. I'm a cloud." We all had that experience. Um, and also the exchange with his friend there, who then brings him into this completely foreign and strange world with these people from the future, basically, is an incredibly fascinating dynamic. So I think we'll wrap here. Comments? Any comments from folks? Uh, Next week we do the same. Oh, very important. I would like to switch the summer reading until we go back to the guests to an earlier time. And I hope this works for folks because I'm still, my own schedule is I'm getting up very early European time. And so the established time of 12 o'clock, we'll keep that with guests, of course, because it's well established. But if it's just us, I don't know if 10 a.m. is a feasible time. That would be really amazing because I do, like I say, I'm a kind of an obsessive, compulsive guy, I guess, when it comes to like schedules, especially my sleep schedule. The combination of being a workaholic where nobody forces me to work except myself, me, myself, and I, um, is that I like to keep that time of sleep. Now, okay, so I'm gonna switch this to 10 and let Kitten know as well on the stream. Welcome, Irvin Benoit. Welcome, Shadowblade. And if folks want to read, please send the info to me by the weekend. Very important, so I can I mean, this is a fairly informal, but I'd like to have it before, and anybody can read. Okay, so um, don't hesitate to nominate yourself for the reading. Go ahead and send me information what you want to read, so I can set it up a little bit. And very good to see some new people here by you and Irvin. And I'm going to wrap up the stream now. Let's see what's happening on the stream chat. Thank you, Kitten. Kitten is supporting us this operation, and Kitten, thank you so much. Um, I hope you enjoyed this, and we're here for you. I hope you can make it into Second Life at some point. Um, Kitten says also 10 is a good time. So fabulous. So we're going to stick to 10 for the duration of the summer off, and then we'll go back to the regular time. And yeah, actually, Ruby has been designing already avatars for the guests. Gabriella Houston is coming. Stranger is a bad time for Stranger. Stranger, you have been overruled. To be this time I'll tell you, I got up at 4 a.m. this morning. I know this is insane, but with my schedule it just works. I have a few hours alone, and currently I'm also coaching my son, which is enjoyable, but it cuts into the day, so the preparation and then doing that. So these early hours are the only time where I'm guaranteed not to have basically uh constant like you know distractions, because then since we're still producing videos for the official Second Life channel, the the madness starts when East Coast with East Coast morning times. Madness is all relative, but so that's already half my day in, and then at this hour I'm just completely spent. And let me tell you, folks, I know people have different opinions, but I do believe 8 hours is really important sleeping time. I totally buy into it. There's a lot of people who say, ah, come on, when you're older, you don't need that kind of sleep. You can. And Arnold Schwarzenegger said 6 hours of sleep is totally okay. More power to Arnold, but I disagree with him there. I know Arnold is an expert in all these things. Didn't like him as a governor when I lived under him. But see, Ilian says 6 hours is fine, but Ilian, you don't know. The 8 hours there's something that's happening. Um, Stranger, then you're coming back on the on the regular time. And and when we come back with guests, the show is going to be bi-weekly. I mean, the guests are going to be bi-weekly, right? The show is every week. So it's going to alternate between guests. You can look at the calendar. You'll see the calendar is booked until the summer of until July 23. We have amazing guests. Matt Ruff is coming back. He wrote a sequel to Lovecraft Country, so this gonna be he's gonna be one of the first appearances with this book. Is going to be us. Um, and yeah, bi-weekly, except for a few exceptions when people really wanted to come in, like the Perry Roden people, because I really wanted them earlier. So this you'll see in October. Jessica has lots of questions for Matt Ruff. Have you read Set This House in Order, Jessica? That's a very serious book about multiple personality disorder. It's really good. Uh, I know Matt Ruff is fascinating because he goes between like really wacky fun to very, very serious. It's almost like it's almost, yeah, also kind of alternating. But Set This House in Order is quite amazing. Oh, Spider Marcus here's on the chat. Yeah, we have book club's been going on since 2020 here in Second Life. Calendars out there, all on the calendar, and always at the same time, except for the Australian uh, time zones. Kitten has been up since 2 a.m. Oh, I'm just reading this. Kitten, that is crazy. That is unhealthy. I did that a few times with radio when I was in radio. 2 a.m. But that's, I mean, the morning hours are good, right, Kitten? But trust the Draxtor mantra of trying to get 8 hours of sleep and read before you sleep. Read, read, read. Don't watch TV. Don't even watch Second Life streams, especially not this one. Reruns maybe. Okay. I want to know the questions for Matt Ruff, Jessica. I want to know them now. All right. I'm going to end the stream now, and I'll see you next week. I'm going to end it here for the stream, folks. We're going to play a song. We're going to play it for Kitten. This song is called Three Rolades and a Cup of Coffee. And I wrote this in 2002 when I had an ulcer and I was drinking too much coffee. It's a good song. Bye bye.
Three Rolaids and a cup of coffee. That's what I'm gonna have for my breakfast. Just to wash down the past. Three Rolaids and a cup of coffee. That should do it for me. For my lunch today. Before we go out and play. Is it really true that the past lies behind us? Do we really know what lies ahead? It's so wonderful, pretty and all. Three salt sticks and a can of Coke should be my diet for now, to forget you, so you may never return. lies behind
Oh,
us?
it's interesting that Franz Werfel was a
We
very
really know
Jewish writer,
what
very
lies
into
ahead. It's so
his
wonderful
Judaism.
already.
And I knew a college professor who was a very
Hi.
dedicated,
You just moved in next
conservative
door, right?
Jewish
Yes.
man.
So, what are you doing right now?
And that
Nothing
college
special,
professor's
really.
favorite
Wanna go
book
for a
was
walk?
The Song of Bernadette
Okay.
by Franz
I
Werfel,
guess.
which
Don't
is
tell
a story
anybody.
about
I
a
won't.
young girl
Is
who
it really true?
meets with and communicates with an apparition of the Virgin Mary.
Lies behind us.
So I thought that was pretty intriguing, that was his favorite book.
Really
Was
know what lies ahead. It's so
That's
a
wonderful.
very Catholic story, by by this author.
Okay, guys.